Hi, everyone. This is Grant Abbott speaking from Abbott Mourly Lawyers and also Lightyear Docs. We just got a query that came through our special strategist hotline that goes straight through to Abbott Mourly Lawyers. A very unique proposition now that allows our strategists to ask Abbott Mourly Lawyers legal questions for no cost. Can you believe that? Anyway, the question came through in relation to shareholding for SMSF Trustee Companies. At Lightyear Docs, we have two different style of trustee companies. We have our standard, although it's got a lot of bells and whistles, particularly around estate planning. We've got our standard SMSF Special Purpose Trustee Company. And then we've got our leading member SMSF Trustee Company. Let me go through them both and actually tell you what's really important. Now, I'm not going to look at the director level. Most of you are pretty well aware that in terms of directors, you obviously need to be a member or holding a member's EPOA to act as a proxy director, which I find is really important. In terms of the other side, I'm sorry, I've just come out of the gym, so I'm a little bit sweaty, but that's fine. The other side is when it comes down to shareholding, there's nothing within the SIS Act which deals with the shareholding of SMSF trustee companies. So what should you be doing? Well, for a standard mum and dad company, we want to have a look at asset protection because we don't want to see those shares going into the estate where it's then subject to probate and then potentially a family provisions claim because it could lock it up for years. Have a look at the recent case of Ellisall, where it took 3.5 years of litigation in relation to an SMSF trustee company, and more importantly, paying out a B2BN. You don't want that. Imagine your client just hasn't got any money or their family hasn't got any money for 3 years. So the best thing to do is make sure that those shares don't get locked up in the estate. So if you've got a typical mum and dad, the best thing to do is have one share with joint shareholders. Then if mum dies, then effectively what will happen is dad will take over and vice versa. So it means it's not going on. Compared to if they've got one share each, it means if one of them dies, it's going to be locked up into the estate. And you just don't need that drama, particularly if there has to be decisions made around the directors and appointing executors and all that, which quite often executors as directors, which quite often happens on the shareholder level. So be very careful about that one. And as I said before, there's a few really good bells and whistles we've put in our standard special purpose SMSF trustee company. For example, on the death of a member, that executor is appointed as trustee, or not trustee, of director of the trustee company. But more importantly, apart from that, when it comes around to dealing with that member's B2BN, or my preference is a SMSF will or anything to do with that member, it is only that executor/director who is actually able to make decisions. All the rest of the directors are frozen out of that. And that's how it should be, because then that's not going to create confusion. It's not going to create angst. And more importantly, it's not going to lead to a litigation drama. On the other side of the coin, which is my preference, is something that I've developed along with the team at Abbott Mourly, and that's our leading member style SMSF, which really follows the British royal family. If you have a look there, when the Queen died, passed to Charles, Charles died, passes on, so on and so forth. So they've actually got 3 generations that really goes down. And likewise, now that we've got, until who knows what the Labor Party is going to do, likewise now, if we've got the ability to have 6 members in the fund, we can have multi-generations in there. Now, this is where you need to have those proxy directorships. For example, the first leading member might be dad, for example, and then dad has mum's EPOA, so he acts as her proxy director inside that self-managed superannuation fund. He is the only shareholder of that trustee company, and that's the way it needs to be set up. So that's the way our interview is set up in Lightyear Docs, so that's absolutely crucial. Now, what will happen is the next generation comes in. So, for example, with Prince Charles, which is now King Charles, and William. So William is also inside that fund. Effectively, he's the next generation leading member. Now, his spouse, obviously Kate, she could give her proxy directorship to effectively Will. And that's the way it basically sits. Now, of course, you could have George in as well, but George is a minor. So automatically, Will actually carries George's directorship under Section 17A3. So it works perfectly. So we have got a really strong line. Now, the important thing about it, the leading member effectively has veto power of all decision-making in there. And his overarching concern is to ensure that benefits either passed out directly or through the estate is for bloodline purposes. If it looks as though it's going to be a challenge, then effectively it's not going to go out to that bloodline or out to the estate if it looks it's going to be challenged. it may then get paid directly out of the fund down to, for example, to a child or someone. And it's not going to be caught by a family provisions claim, with the exception of potentially in New South Wales. So that gives you a bit of a heads up of how to set up these trustee companies, and more importantly, why Light Year Docs and Abbott Mourly completely different. Go and have a look at the existing deed that you've got for your self-managed super fund trustee. I bet you it doesn't even hold a candle to any of our deeds. Anyway, it's Grant Abbott signing off for a wonderful Friday vlog. And sorry about the perspiration, but a man's got to do what a man's got to do.